This conference will now be recorded.
All right, guys. Good morning and good evening. I hope you are able to see my screen. And so let me launch the instance and we can start. So in the last class, what we have discussed? We have discussed the Kubernetes architecture, various services and components of Kubernetes. And we have launched one instance in T2 medium instance type. This is having 2 CPU core and 4 GB of RAM configuration. And in this instance, we have set up our Minikube. All right. Uh, so let me log in into this instance. Okay. So this is our instance which we have launched in our previous class. And we have created one dedicated user ID called student. Using that student user ID, we are going to run the Minikube and as well as the kubectl commands. Okay. Now, what is Minikube? Minikube is nothing but it's the local Kubernetes setup. Basically, if you want to set up Kubernetes lab, you have to launch one instance for server, one instance for node, and if you have multiple nodes, you have to launch multiple instances. So it is going to consume a lot of resources in AWS. So in order to avoid that and in order to practice in minimized in a simplistic lab setup, Minikube tool is used. Okay. And coming to kubectl is nothing but the Kubernetes command line tool, which I have already mentioned in the last class. And we have installed both the tools in this instance. So let me switch to that student user ID, giving the password for that. And this is the student user ID. You can see here. I'm in the home directory of student. Now here, what are the commands I want to run to set up the Minikube lab and all? I can run it here. So the first command, what we are going to do is Minikube. If you run Minikube, you'll get all the commands which are available for Minikube. You can see here all these commands. If you basically the Minikube mainly we have four major commands. One is Minikube start, stop, status, and delete. Okay, so basically it is used for setting up the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so let's try to create uh, one lab. Okay, so start Minikube start. If we just mention Minikube start, it doesn't work. We have to specify which virtualization technology it has to use. All right. So for example, if you are running Minikube in Windows, we are going to use a virtualization technology called HyperKit. Okay. And since we are running in Linux, we are going to use Docker. Okay. So what it is going to do now, it is going to launch one image called Docker, and it is going to set up one Docker container. Okay. So it is downloading the Docker image from Docker Hub. You can see here. So once the Minikube lab is set up, we can start creating the pods and all. Okay. We can't directly create pod. Okay. Pod is the smallest unit of Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So we're not going to deal or we're not going to work directly with the pod. We have separate set of layers, and we are going to work with something called deployment. And inside deployment we have a replica set, and inside replica set we have something called pods. I'll explain you in next few minutes. So until now, we can see here our minikube has been created. Let's check the status now. Okay, you can see here minikube has been set up. We have created a control plane. Okay, and all the other services like kubelet, API server, everything is working. If you want to stop this minikube, you can use minikube stop command. And uh, if you want to delete this minikube, if you are no longer using it, you can use minikube delete command. All right, I'm not going to run this. I'm going canceling this command. Okay, pod is the smallest or atomic unit of Kubernetes cluster. Okay, which means that pod is the smallest part, and inside pod we'll be having Docker containers. And we are not going to directly work with pod. We are going to create something called deployment, which is nothing but the abstraction layer of pod. So, I mean, we are going to create deployments, and deployments are going to control the pods. Okay, so remember that deployment is what we are going to create. So uh, here we are going to create deployments, and in these deployments, in the background, these deployments are going to control, or these deployments are going to create pods and manage them in the background. Okay, so there is we have installed something called kubectl, right? So using this kubectl tool, Kubernetes command line tool, we are going to create deployments, and that command will create the deployment, and in the background it is going to create pod, and inside the pod the containers will be running. Okay, so let's create one sample deployment. We have some commands. I'll show you what is that command and all. So kubectl create. Okay, kubectl create deployment. This doesn't end here. We have to mention which image has to be used. First, we have to mention the deployment name. So let's take our deployment name as nginx-deployment. Okay, you can give any name. I'm giving nginx-deployment. Okay, deployment, that too in shortcut, depl. Space, you have to mention the name. See, in order to run the Docker containers, we need image, right? So we have to mention which image has to be used. So hyphen image nginx. Okay, so what will happen? The kubectl tool is going to create a deployment. Okay, in the background a pod will be created, and the Docker container which is going to be running, that will be running on nginx image, which is going to be downloaded from the Docker hub. Okay, so what I can say here, deployment is nothing but a blueprint. Okay, or it deployment has the blueprint for creating the pods. Okay, it has the entire information like images, how many containers has to run. This command doesn't end here. We have a lot of options. We can keep on mentioning one by one, like how many pods has to be created, how many containers has to run. All these things we can define it here. Okay, so deployment is nothing but the blueprint of creating the pods, and it has the most important and most basic configuration for the deployment. That is, what kind of image has to be used, what kind of uh, deployment name, how many pods has to be created. Everything can be given here. So between deployment layer, okay, between deployment layer and pods, okay, we have another set of layer, and that is called as a replica set. Okay, replica set. So basically, deployment layer has replica sets, and replica sets automatically manage the pods. Okay, so you have to remember in this way. So deployment layer has the replica sets, and replica sets has pods. Okay, what is the usage of replica sets? Replica sets is the main we can call it as replica set is managing the replicas of pods. See, whenever, as I told you, we have something called replacements, right? Replacements or backups. So Kubernetes manages the pods in such a way that whenever there is a pod going down because of some technical issues, it will always try to launch one replica, or it will launch a backup container, backup pod, right? So that is what these replica sets are going to manage. Okay, so replica sets is managing the replicas of pods. How many pods has to be created, how many, what kind of image, what kind of containers has to run. Every information will be there inside the replicas, so we don't have to create manually the replica set. Whenever we create a uh, deployment layer, automatically in the backend replicas will be created, and replicas, inside replicas the pods will be created. Okay, so all we do in Kubernetes is create the deployments, not replicas, not pods. Okay, we don't directly deal with pods or replicas. Remember this point. We always work with deployments only. All right. Okay, so that is what the layers of abstraction. So first we manage the deployment. So deployment manages the replica set, replicas manages the pods, and pods manages what? Pods manages the containers. Okay, so this is what the architecture looks like. So anything below the deployment layer is managed by the Kubernetes automatically. We just create and we just manage deployments. That's it. Anything below deployment is managed by Kubernetes automatically. We don't have to. We just have to check and create and manage only the deployment layer. All right. Okay. Now we'll check some commands. So let me run this command. Enter. So see, the deployment has been created. So let's try to verify that. Kubectl get deployment deployments. Okay, so what it is saying, we have created one deployment called nginx hyphen deployment. Okay, this is what I have given, right, name. So that is what it is going to show. What is this? One by one pod is running. Okay, one pod is running, and this is up to date. One pod is available. The time of I mean, how much time we have created. So we have just created, right, 12 seconds ago. That is what it is showing. So the age of this deployment is 12 seconds. If I try to rerun this command, that this time will be changed. Okay, so let's try to rerun that command. See, so 54 seconds ago we deployed this nginx hyphen deployment. All right, so let's try to see some more commands. kubectl kubectl is nothing but it's the tool, command line tool of Kubernetes. Okay, so kubectl get nodes. What this command will do, this will give you out the complete list of nodes which you have created so far. Okay, so we have created one node, right? Minikube. So that is what it is showing. Okay, the version of the Minikube is 1.22.3. All right, what is the next thing? If you want to see the number of pods, okay, number of pods running, we can use kubectl get pod. Okay, so based on our deployment, we can see here we have one pod running. See, the naming convention of pod is designed in such a way that first the deployment followed by the replica set. This is the replica set ID. Okay, this is the pod number. Okay, I will repeat it once again. First, the name of the pods is designed in such a way that the naming convention it follows is first. One second, guys. One second. All right. So what I was saying is the naming convention of the pods is designed in such a way that the deployment name, what are the deployment we have created. Okay, this will be first given. After that, this is the replica set ID. After that, pod number. Okay, pod ID. So this is how we get the list of pods using kubectl get pod command. The next thing is kubectl get services. Okay, simple. This will give you out the list of services we have created. Enter. So we have created one Kubernetes cluster, right? So that is what it is showing. One Kubernetes cluster. Inside this we have one node, one master. Okay, this is the cluster IP. Okay, all right. So the next thing is, if you want to verify the number of, or if you want to check out the what are the deployments you have created. Okay, so if you want to run, if you want to check out the list of all the deployments, use kubectl get deployments. Okay, so we have created only one deployment, right? And this is the name of that deployment. You can see here. So this is how we see it. Now, if I want to see the replica sets, okay, how many replica sets have been created? Just instead of deployments, just mention replica sets. Okay, replica sets. So see here, as I told you, right? Replica set naming convention is followed by first deployment followed by the replica set ID. This is the replica set ID. I mean, when I run the command kubectl get pods, you can see here, right? This is what it denotes. Okay, from here only this has been derived. Okay, so this command will give you out the list of all the replica sets. All right. Now see, whenever we create a deployment, a deployment file will be created. A deployment's configuration file will be created. Okay. Uh, if you want to edit that deployment configuration file, you have to give the command kubectl edit deployment, give the deployment name. What is the deployment name? This one, right? So space, give it. So what will happen? The configuration of this particular deployment file will be opened. And remember that will be in the YAML code. Okay, YAML coding. So let's try to edit this command. Okay, command. What will happen? A file will be opened. This is a file, configuration file of this nginx-deployment, and you can see all the required information. All right. At this moment, I will not discuss about this. We'll discuss this tomorrow. Okay, because we are just discussing the basic commands, right? We'll discuss about how to what kind of all these parameters are all there. Here also same. We have key, we have value, key and value, same how we configured and how we, like, written the playbooks, right? In the same way, same method is going to be followed here. So at this moment, I'm not going to edit this. I'm going to come out of this file, escape, quit, exclamation mark. So what it is saying, see, edit, cancel, no changes made. So I didn't change any configuration in that file. All right. Now the next thing is, uh, next set of commands. So what I want to discuss is, okay, let's try to create one more uh, deployment. Okay, so at this moment we have only one deployment, that is nginx. Let's try to create another one, kubectl create deployment, give the deployment name. I'm going to create a deployment called mongodb. Okay, so mongo hyphen deployment. You can give any name. Okay, so in order to make this deployment naming convention understand better, so I'm going to give this name called mongo hyphen deployment space. You have to mention the name using which image the containers has to be launched. So hyphen image equal to mongo. Mongo. Okay, enter. That's it. So we have created a deployment called mongo deployment. Let's verify that. See here, created 7 seconds ago. Okay, we have one pod up and running. All right. Okay. The next thing is, mm, I want to see I want to see the logs of that deployment. Okay, logs, or I want to see the logs of that particular pod. Okay, so let's get the pod name first. Kubectl get pods. So this is the Mongo deployments pod name, right? I want to see the logs. I want to debug, or I want to just monitor what is happening in that particular pod. So just copy that pod name and type the command kubectl logs, mention the pod name. Okay, so what exactly this will do? This will give you out the complete logs. Okay, if anything is happening, I mean, first of all, you have to make sure that the pod is running and there is some activity going on. Okay, if you want to view the logs, some action should be going on, right? So let's wait for a second. Okay, so see here, once I hit the enter button, we have all the commands. Okay, I mean, all the list of logs which are going on in that pod. Let me show you one thing. Here we can see here, see, highlighted part. So what is happening here? It is mentioned here. Okay, what exactly is happening inside that pod? You can see here. So automatically disabling the TLS, then transport layer configuration. Okay, then successfully registered primary only service. I mean, this is all related to the database, MongoDB database configuration is going on. Okay, so that is what the logs have been registered. So that is what the command. Okay, so if you want to check out the logs of one particular pod, you have to give the command kubectl logs space the pod name. All right, so let me clear the screen. So that is the command. Okay, kubectl logs, give the the pod name. All right. Okay, so what is the next thing what we can check out is we can also see. Let me run this command kubectl logs. Okay, so this is not a valid command. You can ignore this. See, what did I tell you? Inside pod we have container, right? Inside pod we have container, and you want to log in into that container. Okay, you want to go inside that container. So how to do that? I mean, how to test that container? How to deploy any application inside that container? How can we do that? So we have to use the command called kubectl exec. Okay, execute hyphen it. Mention the pod name here. So basically this is the pod name, right? Mention the pod name, and after that hyphen uh, bin slash bash. Okay, very similar to docker exec hyphen it hyphen name, container name, bin bash. So in the same way what we have used in docker class, okay, docker exec command, similarly we have kubectl exec command to go inside the container and launch the terminal. So let me run this command, enter. So see here where exactly I am. I have switched from student to root account of that container. Okay, root account of that container. Let's see ls. See, all these are docker container files. Let's check the OS as well. Cat etc slash os star. Okay, so our container is running on Ubuntu image. All right, and our our instance is running on Amazon Linux. We know that. So this is how we can go inside a container which is present inside the pod by using this kubectl exec command. Okay, one of the important commands with respect to kubectl. Okay, for debugging or for modifying any files inside the container or for testing any applications. Okay, all those things we can do it easily by going inside the container by like this. Okay. Now what else we have? We have something called cube uh, ctl describe command. Okay, describe command. So we'll discuss about that. Kubectl describe, give the pod name. Okay, describe pod. What is the pod, what is the deployment name? Oh, we don't. Okay, pod name is required. So let's take the pod name. This is the pod name, right? Yeah. So what will happen once I run this command? This will give you out the complete status of the pod. I mean, whether the pod is running, whether the pod is not yet launched, whether the container has been created or not. Entire information by that two step by step will be displayed after running this command. Okay, so once I run this command, entire set of steps, what exactly is happening in the backend with respect to the Docker containers, everything will be shown here. Enter. So we are getting some kind of error, right? So I think mm, so the kubectl describe pod. Let me rerun that. Oh, we are inside the container, guys. See here, I'm inside the container and I'm trying to run the kubectl command. So obviously we'll get error, right? So let me come out, exit. See, I'm back to my EC2 machine, student. Let me rerun this command now. All right, enter. So see here, the complete information with respect to that pod will be shown here. So we have executed this command. The first thing is the name of the pod, namespace, the node's IP address, start date when we have created it. Okay, and all that information, IP address, controlled by which replica set. I told you, right? Replica set controls the pods and deployment controls the replica set. Okay, so this replica set is controlling this pod, and inside this pod we have the container called this one, Mongo container. This is the container ID. It is running on Mongo image, and it has pulled this image from this particular, okay, path. We don't have, I mean, we didn't configure any port at this moment for this Mongo container. All this information, if you see here, try to read these messages. This one. So first it successfully created this mini cube. It is created this pod, pulling the image, pull the image, created the container and started the container. Okay. And how much time it took for each and every stage it has given here. All right. So this is one of the important commands with respect to, you know, uh, checking out what exactly is happening in the backend inside the replica set. Okay. How much time it is taking for pod to be launched and all. If after running the command kube CTL create deployment, even if the pod is not getting created and you are seeing, okay, and if you are seeing after running this command, if you are seeing zero here, then you should understand that there is something wrong with the deployment and the pod is not getting created. Okay, so in that way, what you can do, you can run this kubectl describe command, and you can verify what kind of what exactly is happening in the backend inside the replica set. Got it? So a lot of commands are there in kubectl, a lot of commands. Based on the requirement, you have to use the right one. Okay. Now, as I told you, we have something called the deployment, the configuration file. Okay. So we can, let's take that file. Let's open up that file once again. Oh, Okay, so see here, this is the deployment file. Okay, and let's say that you have done some configuration. Okay, you have done some configuration changes. For example, let me come out here, go to insert mode, and instead of one replica set, I want two replicas. Okay, two replica set. Okay, and if you want to minimize or maximize the, all this configuration like maximum surge and all these things, you can create. And if you want to open up the ports and all, you can do all those things here in this file. Let's try to create this change. Okay, I have just changed the replicas number here, and we can just save this file. Okay, save this file, and what are the changes we have done. Okay, if you try to check it out once again, kubectl get deployment. Okay, those changes will not be those changes will be automatically what do you call that, automatically it will be reflected. You can see here 2 by 2. Okay, so kubectl get pods. So see here, what did I tell you? Two replica set I have created, right? So two pods have been created automatically. Okay, so what are the changes you do inside that file? Immediately Kubernetes will apply those changes in runtime. Okay, runtime. You have to make a note of it. All right. So we'll discuss more about this, how to what exactly all those parameters are, what kind of changes we do inside the configuration file in tomorrow's class. Okay. Now there is something called, we can create our own deployment files as well. Okay, we can create our own deployment files as well. Let's assume that we have created a file called nginx deployment.yml. Okay, we have created a sample file. Okay, inside this file we have applied all those configuration changes in YAML. Okay, yeah, using YAML we have given all those what do you call that, deployment details and all. Okay, so what we can do is we can apply those changes using the kubectl apply command. Okay, apply command. One second. Okay, so as I told you, what are the file what are the configuration we want to give inside that deployment file, we have to give it. Okay, and we have a command called kubectl apply -f. -f means we are applying that changes. Okay, in runtime you have to mention the file name. Okay, and once I hit the enter button, what will happen, what are the changes we have given, or what are the configuration we have given inside that file, that will be applied in real time. Okay, in runtime, and the deployment will be created. So this particular process is used for uh, creating the deployments in a manual way. Okay, manual method. And in case if you want to delete this configuration, you can use the kubectl delete -f the file name. Okay, so that will delete that configuration and the deployment. So at this moment we have two deployments. One is MongoDB deployment, and one is Nginx deployment, which we have created for the first time, right? So in case if you want to delete these deployments, what command will be used? Very simple, kubectl delete the deployment name. Okay, and in case if you want to delete a pod, you have to mention the pods as well. Okay, so pods kubectl delete pod, the pod name. Let's try to delete this one. That's it. We have successfully deleted one pod. Okay. But again, if you have to understand one thing, what is the replica set we have given inside the file? 2. So it will try to match that desired state. That is what we have told you, right? Control plane. So that is what the control plane is going to do. It is going to actually match the desired state. Whatever the configuration we have given, it will check with the actual state, and if the actual state is not matching, it will try to do those changes, and it will try to match with the desired state. So in the replica set column, we have given the number 2, right? So it will always try to match that 2. That's why immediately a new particular pod has been created. You can see here 4 seconds ago. Okay, so if even if you delete both these two, again another new 2 pods will be created. All right. Okay, so kubectl delete deployment name. So let me use this Mongo. So Mongo is not there. Oh, so I just given the pod name, right? So until here only. Okay, so we have deleted the deployment now. And in case if you want to delete the other one, just mention the other one as well. Okay, that's it. So we have deleted the deployments. All right, guys. So just got a basic idea, right? How exactly kubectl tool helps us to, you know, create the deployments, manage the replica sets, and all those things we can do it with the help of kubectl. Okay, so we'll, I mean, a lot of commands we have discussed today. Mm, okay, a lot of kubectl commands we have discussed, and so what we can do is we can stop it here. Okay, just make a note of all these commands. I'll upload the document in the Google Drive. Set up your lab and practice these commands, and tomorrow will be our last Kubernetes class. We'll discuss how to write the configuration file and all, and how to create the deployments. Okay, so any doubts so far, guys? Whatever we have discussed, please confirm.
No, sir.
All right. So, okay, guys. So that's it from my side for today. So I'll upload the document and I'll confirm in the group. Practice the commands which you have seen until now. Try to create few deployments on your own. Try to use the describe command. Try to check the logs and all. And in tomorrow's class, we'll try to write some configuration file. We'll try to deploy those configuration files. And so today is Thursday, right? All right. So tomorrow we'll complete Kubernetes, and by Monday or by like Tuesday or something, we'll complete the Terraform and we'll wrap up everything. Okay. Thank you guys. Bye.